he didn't black out. And those 100 women or whatever women, 70 women, who have vouched for him.
And there's a bunch of women who were never called, by the way.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay. Hi. The old farts are going to talk about the Kavanaugh investigation and what does it mean and what doesn't it mean, and where, as far as we know, things are going. And one of the things that I have, in listening to people talk about Mueller and what he's doing and why he's going after Manafort and a few other people who, quote, have nothing to do with anything. We keep being told that the only thing he's supposed to look at is collusion. And so I thought I would read the authorization that put the whole probe into motion. And so if you'll excuse me for a moment, let me read this memo that he was given. And this is from Rod Rosenstein, Acting Attorney General. By virtue of the authority vested in me as Acting Attorney General, including 28 U.S.C. something or another 509, 510, and 515, in order to discharge my responsibility to provide supervision and management of the Department of Justice, and to ensure a full and thorough investigation of the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, I hereby order as follows. A. Robert S. Mueller III is appointed to serve as Special Counsel for the United States Department of Justice. B. The Special Counsel is authorized to conduct the investigation confirmed by then FBI Director James B. Comey in testimony before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence on March 20, 2017, including I. Any links or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump, and II. Any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation, and III. Any other matters within the scope of 28 CFR something or another 600-4A. C. If the Special Counsel believes it is necessary and appropriate, the Special Counsel is authorized to prosecute federal crimes arising from the investigation of these matters. D. Sections 600.4 through 600.10 of Title 28 of the Code of Federal Regulations are applicable to the Special Counsel. The reason I read that is that much of the defense that I've heard for people being investigated by Robert Mueller is that he's investigating things that have nothing to do with the Russia probe or interaction. And in some cases that may or may not be true. But as he does his investigations and he finds other federal crimes, i.e. Paul Manafort, he is authorized to, in fact, prosecute those things, which is what he's done. So, open up the floor to comments about what's happening and whether it should be happening or not.
So what you are saying is that his charge is actually to just look at if there is a link, then whatever then comes up while he is digging the links,
right,
it is all fair game.
Yeah, well, for example, you would go after somebody who you think had connections with Russia and go back into the background to find out if what their motivation might have been. For example, Paul Manafort, although he earned $60 million and, oh, by the way, didn't pay taxes on it and managed to go broke, and then he goes and takes a job for zero pay, you begin to wonder why, what are his motivations? And so you would investigate that, and you might find that he was indebted to a Russian oligarch. And you might find that he was giving private briefings about the Trump campaign and the Trump people to that oligarch.
But there are actually reports that Manafort had set up an NGO in Europe somewhere, which was funded by the oligarchs, and that funded NGO was actually then subcontracting different pieces of the work to people, to organizations such as Podesta organization. To remember Podesta's brother. And so that is how he then, without him getting directly involved, he was indirectly involved. He was collecting money and then distributing it out so that he would not be an agent. Those people would be the agents, he would not be, because he was NGO and just subcontracting. So I thought that maybe he created a distance between himself and rest of the organization, and rest of the organizations and Russian oligarchs.
What bothers me is that this process that is being undertaken is going on so long until it is bringing a lot of people looking at various issues, but people are beginning to believe none of the things that have come up because our country is not being notified and really don't know what is going on. So there's a lot of speculation about one thing or another, Republican or whatever, Democrat. And so the results are slowly is making people feel like nothing can get completed.
Wait a minute. There's what, close to 30 indictments? Several people have pleaded guilty already. Flynn is scheduled to go to jail in December. There's an awful lot of things that have completed and are happening. And as Mueller is looking into it, he keeps finding more and more corruption. So and the corruption that's federal, he prosecutes. The corruption that at state, he's been giving to New York State because it's in their jurisdiction. So you can't say nothing is happening. There's an enormous amount that's happening.
But what people are impatient about is that there is no smoking gun connecting President Trump with any of this stuff. That's, I think, what people are
Except that his son had a meeting with Manafort and
the Russian lawyer.
And the son-in-law.
And to specifically distribute dirt from Hillary Clinton's emails. The Russian mafia has rooms. They own rooms in Trump Tower on the 16th floor.
Oh, is that? I didn't know.
Yeah,
They bought apartments. I didn't know that specifically 16th floor. And it's not just Trump Tower in New York. It's Trump properties all over the world, which is could be a form of money laundering, because you buy something and then when you sell it, the source of the money is clear. I sold some property.
yeah. Okay, that's another thing. Trump said on I don't know whether it was live TV or one of his campaign rallies. Russia, if you have Hillary's emails, I'm sure the press would love to see them. Which is that is a violation of the that's inducing somebody to give stolen data, and it's inducing a foreign country to give stolen data to people.
But does that actually come any closer to a federal crime? just by saying that, he could just say them. Well, anybody could say that.
It's not collusion. Collusion is conspiracy
Yes.
done in secret. It is conspiracy,
But it's not necessary.
which is a felony. But
Okay.
it's not collusion because he did it publicly. He committed this felony in public.
But the problem there is, I mean, I'm not a legal scholar, but I have heard Dashwood say these things, not me. Blame him. Just because he said that, how can you link the release of the whatever to him? That line from him, straight line, is not there. That's what he said.
That is a straight line. He said it. He said it publicly.
He may have said it as a joke, and he's claimed
That's what
that
he
that's what he
said.
did. However, it's kind of interesting, based on the timeline that from some of the indictments of the Russians, evidently the hacking of the, I don't know if it was Podesta
Podesta,
or
actually.
DNC, began a day or two after he made that statement.
Actually, no, that's not true.
That's not true.
The hacking happened long before that.
There was some additional hacking that was done afterwards.
But they started releasing the day after.
Okay.
Day after he said that.
Yes.
I thought that they were releasing before that, because that was if you listen to the speech itself, he was saying, look at all this stuff that's coming out, now let's get Hillary's emails. So I think there was something happening before, and then some additional stuff happened immediately thereafter.
Okay.
Is the way I remember reading the timeline.
But I thought at that time there was some collusion between WikiLeaks and the release of the data, not Trump and Russia. Because that's what I thought, but maybe I'm wrong.
There was, WikiLeaks got the data from someone who Mueller says was Russian employees, intelligence officers. When the release of it, or at least some of the release, happened before Trump's speech, and some evidently happened fairly soon afterwards. Now, whether it was Podesta at that point, I don't remember.
I think we should be using the word conspiracy instead of collusion. Collusion, there is no
Dark rooms.
federal law against collusion.
Right.
There is a federal law against conspiracy.
Right.
And conspiracy done in secret is collusion.
But the only thing what I'm wondering, can you still connect the dots between Trump and whatever,
Yes, through
the oligarchs, Putin?
What is it? WikiLeaks,
Yes.
Stone, and Stone was in the Trump campaign.
Well, no, that connects the campaign, which, by the way, is what Mueller is supposedly going after. Manafort can be connected in a similar way, but whether Trump had any direct involvement or knowledge of is, I think, in part what's holding up the process, because I don't know that they can directly do it, although it's kind of interesting. I was having dinner last night with a friend of mine who's very much involved in politics, and he claimed that the day before the Trump Tower meeting, he read an article which said there was going to be a meeting between Trump Jr., Manafort, and a Russian to discuss. He didn't know what it was. They didn't know what the subject was. So evidently somebody had let the word out.
So where did he? Do you know where this?
It was Tampa paper. It was from a Tampa paper. It wasn't like it was a big headline or anything, the way he was describing it. But it was definitely, he claimed, because I thought the Russians were the ones who talked about this, because there are other things that have gotten Trump into trouble, whose source was Russia.
Russian ambassador.
The ambassador, for example, the meeting where after Comey was fired, and Trump was saying, "I got this monkey off my back. The Russia thing's done because I got rid of this maniac." The only people in the room were the Russian ambassador and the translator, Russian translator, no Americans. Yet that came out almost immediately, and it came out from Russia. And I think that the Russians are stirring the pot as best they can.
Right. Their objective is to stir the pot. It doesn't matter whether
Right.
it's pro-Trump or against Trump.
Right.
So does that mean they don't care that Trump won? They just want to.
It's a lot easier with Trump
I see.
as the president, but what they're trying to do is to systematically destroy democracy.
So what you are then saying is they are doing the same thing what U.S. does in other countries.
Possibly, yeah.
Now, if you recognize that they are trying to destroy democracy, why don't our leaders recognize that and try to do
Half of
something
them
about
do.
it?
CIA
Okay, what
does
half
actually.
is that?
Yeah.
The group that's not in power.
The group that's not in power.
And that kind of
recognize
explains
that.
why the group that's in power is resisting. Although there are some Republicans who believe that some of this has gone on.
Lindsey Graham, I thought, said that something about that.
It comes and goes. Lindsey Graham, I don't know what his story is, but he goes back and forth from being one of the harshest critics, and that includes Ted Cruz of Trump. He's now buddy with him. They play a lot of golf.
Yeah, I mean, after McCain died, I think he has kind of gone overboard this side.
Well, I think he was tending in that direction for the last year or so.
But maybe that has made him freer, I guess.
Yeah, I know it's not. It's kind of orthogonal to our present discussion, but he was really hot in today's judicial
He
meeting.
was pissed about everybody questioning Kavanaugh, and he was saying, in a court of law, it's not just a crime, but you can ruin somebody, and they're ruining Kavanaugh by these allegations, which is probably true. And it occurred to me that he claims they're unsubstantiated allegations. And he, among others, is saying, no, you can't call witnesses because we don't want to talk to witnesses, we don't take the time, but the witnesses are the people who can substantiate. So otherwise, what they're doing is they're quoting anonymous sources and somebody who said something on Facebook, etc., on both sides, by the way, as opposed to bringing somebody in under oath and say, what do you remember? You said this. On what basis did you say that?
Yes, and that is one of our small things, not being able to have our leadership give our country the ability to bring people in for discussion, and the person, the discussion, the leader should be independent and not taking one side or the other, and our people should be able to trust that, to see whether one can determine what is going on, rather than listening to people who are supposed to be our leader not really making really much sense, and they do not, for example, tell us and tell people whether this is a yes or no thing. It's not yes or no when they are on television or whatever. It's not yes or no. We allow people to go on and discuss and avoid everything related to yes or no, and the complete finding out whether someone is guilty or not guilty of some things.
See, this is what I was actually going to say, that what bothers me is that Senator Feinstein got the letter in July. Now, why did she have to sit on it?
Because the woman said she was afraid that if it became public, that she would be harassed.
No, but couldn't the senator bring up the case without relating the name, without saying any name? She could have given to FBI, done all that, and actually talked to her Senate compatriots.
Unless you can attribute a name to a statement, it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Really.
We have some of the, but evidently, I did hear one thing. Ford said that she tried to get a hold of the president, or inform the president of these allegations before Kavanaugh was selected, so that he could select somebody else.
Yeah.
So when it went in July, and I don't know what happened as far as getting to the White House. Maybe it got there and they ignored it, whatever. Or maybe it was never sent to the White House. I have no idea. But she did, back in July, before Kavanaugh was the nominee, in fact try to tell her story. Maybe as an anonymous person, that may be part of the problem.
I mean, isn't it also worth investigating, although it's anonymous? Isn't there a procedure to investigate, although it's an anonymous allegation for such a high post?
Yeah. Investigate who for what?
Well, I mean, there is an allegation against Kavanaugh, so they could. I don't know what the procedures are. I have no idea how could they investigate.
Yeah. The problem is the details of the were not made public until
3 days ago, 4 days, a week ago.
Well, it was
Until-
about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks
until
ago.
now Feinstein said she did not, neither she nor her staff nor the other representative or her staff ever sent the letter.
Yeah.
However, people came to talk to Ford about the issue, and she said that she had told other people, other friends about this, and
That she sent the letter.
that she had been
She had told-
she had been violated
But how did the press come to know? That's what
because the press came to know it through
Someone, I didn't know
Some
that
of
she
her
had told
friends.
her friends. I
But
thought
that
it was
long
leaked
time.
from
She
the
had-
staff, but
she
maybe
had
not.
told long time ago that to
So-
her friends, 40 years ago.
Oh, that I hadn't heard.
But recently,
no
not 4 years ago.
just recently.
but the letter came out. I mean, the information about the letter came out somehow.
Let's see, the letter actually never came out.
Yeah, but information about that came out somehow. That the
Right,
letter was
information
sent.
came out, and the supposition now is that it was her friends that informed
I see.
the Washington Times.
New York Times.
New York Times.
No, not the New York-
Washington
I thought it was the
Post.
Washington Times.
Washington
The Washington
Post.
Times wouldn't have done anything. But the
Washington
Post
Post.
might have.
Washington Post,
Yeah.
and then reporters started hounding her in her house, and
yes.
one reporter came to her class,
Oh,
and she thought it was a student, and came up and started to talk to her,
wow.
and that's how the story
bad.
that's how the story came out.
So we have an answer, and they haven't answered the question. When this was coming out, why wasn't it sent to the FBI to investigate?
And that answer is only the person that's only the entity that is proposing that this person be a federal judge or they have the responsibility of informing the FBI to investigate, not the Senate, either the majority or the minority in the Senate confirmation.
So that means nobody other than Trump.
Yes.
Well, I think the Senate could request it, but they're not going to.
So essentially, there is going to be a vote tomorrow, and that's the end of that.
Oh, well, there'll be a vote in the committee tomorrow.
Well, they said when they heard about it, they did try to talk to people, and they received confirmation that they say they received confirmation that under oath from these four people, the lawyers for those four people, that it never happened. And Kavanaugh said that several times. What they actually said was they didn't remember.
Oh.
Not that they could verify that it never happened.
Well, that's
That's
different.
That's very different.
By the way, does anybody remember what party it might have been at? Because
It
that
was-
was a thing this afternoon that seemed to be a strong point. Although in a court of law, you have to be able to say it happened at such and such a time in such and such a place. But if it's not a court of law, then it's more a question of could it have happened? Because
Well-
Kavanaugh says it couldn't possibly have happened.
Well, I heard one of the news items that what he indicated that he was not present during the time frame
Right.
the party was supposed to have happened.
And he verified that by his daily
log.
daily log.
That's
And-
remarkable. How did
And
that's
and you-
amazing.
and you-
Because he's been-
And you can imagine, well, first of all, he is a fairly intelligent guy, fairly intelligent. What person with an IQ of over 100, let's say, would put in his daily log, I tried to rape, such
Well,
and
he has
such
a
a person,
calendar.
on this day in the calendar? I mean, that's absurd.
What I find interesting is that he has back from, what was it, 1982.
But that's all I was amazed that he had a calendar.
Yeah.
And I guess he had calendars from other years as well, but
I
not
heard
nearly
it
as
on-
detailed.
Yes, I heard it in the news item. I said, my God, he had a calendar?
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with his having a calendar, but I would certainly not expect him to write in the calendar on that day. I committed a felony by attempting to rape a minor.
And perhaps we could get more information if there were more independents being involved in this, as opposed to a Republican or a Democrat. Why do we not have more independent people?
Because we've come to the point in our history where winning is more important than anything else.
Yes.
And I think the Republican majority in the Senate and House think that having a conservative Supreme Court is worth anything else that they have to put up with. And at some point, when they think that Trump has gotten to the point where he can't give them more judges, they will throw him out.
One thing what surprises me is that when you compare Anita Hill's,
Yes.
what she went through.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, there were a couple of witnesses that Anita Hill said would corroborate her statements who were never called.
Yes, I mean, that's
Yes.
what I'm saying. At that time, there is a somebody's news report I heard on radio while I was driving a few weeks, maybe 2 weeks ago. She has written a book about that. And she said it took her 1 year to dig this whole information up. But Anita Hill had a graphic description. You did not need any corroboration for that. And that was contemporaneous. That was not 40 years ago. It was just maybe 3 months ago or 5 months ago. I don't know how many months. But she had, I mean, how more graphic can you get other than what she described? And still, people didn't believe her. And I blame Joe Biden at that time because he was one of the stars pushing. And there you have, Clarence Thomas was confirmed.
And I think in large measure Clarence Thomas was confirmed because he was African American. And he happened to be conservative, so neither side could really go after him?
Because they were getting criticism that they didn't have a diverse
Judges,
Supreme
yeah.
Court. So they've,
And the Democrats weren't in a position to go after a African American, and the Republicans got their conservative, and nobody was happy, but they did it.
So it's the same thing is going to happen now.
This one, number one is a far more serious crime than the other. And number two, this guy is, I think, a lot more capable than
Which guy is
Clarence
this?
Thomas has turned out to
Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
be.
But
So,
at the same time, you can also dismiss all the allegations based on all those women that have vouched for him, and at the same time, as actually one of the news items I saw on TV is one of the women saying, which high school student has not touched a woman? Like she went like that, and I thought that was interesting that this is a woman saying this. So
Yeah. Yes, he has a whole bunch of people that say he's great, but there are people that say he's violated them.
but
And
but the,
so, and if the women that say he's great were not there, their opinion really doesn't matter. But,
yeah,
you know,
yes.
the other question is, you know, did they ever see him drunk? Because he was supposedly,
Yes.
you know, when he's not drunk, he's very nice. When he is drunk, he's very belligerent. At least that's what people say. I'm
But-
not saying it's true or not. I don't know. I wasn't there.
But at the same time, what is conflicting in there that you have these maybe 100, 200 women who vouch that, well, he's a nice guy. Maybe he drinks, but he never blacks out. Some people have said that, but he himself said that.
Yeah.
Now,
But
now,
at the same time, you're right that if they were not there, how are they going to vouch against or for?
now a survey need to be taken of those 100 women to see whether there were 100 women of Republicans who gave that information.
could
Well,
be part of it.
But actually,
You know, if they come from the schools that, you know, they said they came from, it's highly likely because these people are all very wealthy.
yes, they are from the elite schools in Washington D.C.
There's
Virginia.
Chevy Chase.
Chevy Chase, yes. So there is a Catholic women's school, and they were friendly with those and then another point says that Dr. Ford was not part of that group. They were in the social circles. They were not in the same social circles.
Right.
Whatever that means, actually.
So the interesting question is, how'd she get to whatever party this
Yes.
was
She
at
was
15?
She was
she was
15.
friendly with the girl that invited her to the party.
Oh, so
And the party consisted of the girl who invited her, the Ford, and 4 guys,
But does that girl remember?
and no parents.
but okay, well here you now. Did the girls say there was a party?
I think Ford was led to believe it was going to be a party and more people were coming.
No, but I understand. Is the girl who invited her?
Testimonial, you
Yeah.
say?
Is she testified or
She has I can't say testify. She has consulted a lawyer, and her statement is she doesn't remember.
Oh no.
And
Okay.
she's also said to Ford, if it's between you and him, I believe you. That's what she said to Ford.
Okay. But I mean, it's quite possible that she was not upstairs in the bedroom.
She was not upstairs. She was downstairs with the other 2 guys, PJ and whoever the 4th one was. And Judge, who is actually, I don't know, some kind of an author.
He's written a bunch of books about how he's an alcoholic, and
Yeah.
in high school he was
And-
blackout drunk.
And his good friend Bart O'Kavanaugh,
Oh,
Oh yeah.
but
not Brett Kavanaugh.
not Brett Kavanaugh. So, but Judge is not a judge actually. It's his name.
Yeah, that's his last name.
Oh, that's his last name. Okay.
And he was he was a well celebrated drunk when he was in high school,
Celebrated
and he
drunk.
was one of Kavanaugh's best friends.
Right.
And is he a Republican, Democrat, or Independent?
He was a high school kid.
He
was
was-
a high school kid at that time. Now, is
He has become a very
Republican?
conservative person. He was, in his early years, early 20s, whatever, as well as being a drunk, etc., he was fairly liberal, and he's come to become very conservative.
Okay.
So, not that at this point necessarily matters. You can be conservative and still,
Be drunk?
or
Well,
be conservative
the
and
thing
still
is-
believe that certain
Okay.
things are right and wrong.
He was in the room at the time,
Right.
and if he says he saw anything in the room at the time, he would be just as guilty of
Right.
Oh, yeah.
because the
Oh,
two
I
of them
see.
pushed her in a room from behind. She didn't know which one it was that pushed her in the room. They locked the door, turned up the music, and Kavanaugh was on top, and Judge was egging him on.
So judge was also in the room,
Judge
Yeah.
was in the room,
According to
according to her.
court.
According
Well,
to
that's-
her.
and judge says no. No, judge says he doesn't remember.
I don't remember anything.
Ah.
And he also said he is not going to
Right,
take a
he's hiding.
subpoena.
Okay.
He's hiding.
And the
Okay.
FBI has not investigated and talked to him.
They can't investigate because Trump hasn't told them, or the White House, the group that's
Yes.
putting him forward, has not authorized them to do it.
So,
And that's the problem.
And they can't also investigate because none of this is a federal crime at this point. If there was a question of perjury before Congress, maybe that would be a federal crime. Well, it would be, but lacking that, they have no jurisdiction.
so does that mean that Trump has solid ground not to ask for an FBI investigation?
He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to.
You know, if it were the other way, if it was a Democrat,
Well, then we have to investigate.
then he may have done it, but he doesn't have to.
I see.
And the Senate is not going to ask the FBI to do it.
So that means
And they don't have the authority to ask the FBI to do it.
I disagree with.
They
I
do
think
not.
they do.
No, they don't. I've heard it on multiple times on television. It's only the entity that's putting forth the person has the authority to ask for an investigation.
So if somebody lies to the Senate, or there is belief that somebody has lied to the Senate cannot request that.
They can request. I guess you're right. They can.
I don't know. I'm
They- they
asking
can-
the question.
If there's a question of perjury, then they can do it.
Well, that's really what the question is right now.
Yeah. Well, from all intents and purposes, everyone thinks the question is sexual assault, not perjury.
So-
But one of the
If you prove
definite
sexual assault, you prove perjury. If you prove that no sexual assault happened,
you've proved perjury.
No, you prove, well, perjury on
Yeah.
Ford's side.
Yeah, and what I would, if I were she, which I am not, but if I were she, I'd say if you do not believe me, start a perjury investigation.
Well, she hasn't said start perjury, she said investigate.
Yeah, well, she says investigate the whole situation, but if you don't believe me and you believe him instead, charge me with perjury.
but at the same time, given the situation, given that that kind of investigation is not going to happen, that means Kavanaugh will get confirmed,
Well,
By
today.
Monday.
we don't know what's happening with Flake, with Collins, and Murkowski.
And
And I guess there's another one.
Manchin. The four of them are in a room together
Oh,
talking
Oh, is that?
Oh, really?
Is that right?
As we speak.
But don't they need only 50? What do they need?
They need
50
two.
52.
No,
So-
they need, if they get 50 senators, then Pence will be
Will
51.
throw the vote in.
So they need 2.
Yes,
If 2 say no,
it's done.
it's done.
Right. And
Or if Flake
if
says
If
no,
it's 50-50, the
then,
president,
well,
then the vice president is the
but
cast
if
vote.
Flake says no, then it doesn't get out of committee. So you'll know tomorrow.
No,
Why? It's not, there are 9,
no. It can still get out of committee. The committee votes no, but it can be taken up by the
okay.
by the
Even
Senate.
without committee vote?
Yeah.
like it's
Well, I didn't know that.
Actually, I think you're right. I'm trying to remember.
There was somebody recently that
But didn't Judge Borg's thing die because of that?
well, his died because they it was clear that they were going to be voted against, and it was at that time, wasn't it? They needed 60% or something.
Yeah, up
The rules
until,
have changed
up until
last year.
last year,
Yeah.
the Supreme Court, you would need 60, which was kind of unfortunate. The Democrats did what they did, but on the other hand, nothing would have happened if they hadn't. But then everybody agreed, no, the Supreme Court needed 60, and then the Republicans said, no, 50 is fine.
So that means Judge Kavanagh is right in saying that it's all a conspiracy, a liberal, democratic smear campaign to get me out of the bench.
Well, whether it's a smear campaign or not isn't clear, but it is definitely an issue to say, no, this and possibly any other strong conservative should not be on the bench. Unlike Gorsuch, where it was, an election's coming in a year. We can wait. In this particular case, they were having an election in 3 months. No, we got to get it done now.
So,
Yeah.
so the women who will probably lose right now, if they brought charges against the person
Against
for
Ford?
the 4 women, if they brought charges, they want some money because these things happen. It wouldn't go any place. They wouldn't have a chance to.
Well, they could do it. Whether a prosecutor would pick it up or not is
Yeah.
another question.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that Maryland's laws say that if this kind of a crime, there is no statute of limitations.
Yes.
So in theory, it could be a criminal as opposed to a civil prosecution.
But given that nobody is corroborating, that will be difficult to prove, I guess.
Right. But then again, nobody's really investigating. No law enforcement
Yes,
is
that's
really
true.
investigating. So, it's a little different. I can post something or send a letter, even if I sign it, saying, I don't remember any of this stuff. And now the person who's quoting me can say, he said it did not happen.
Okay.
Not the same thing as Paul pointed out earlier.
So does that mean in the long run, when you look at the Me Too movement, this is going to dampen that movement, or?
I think it's going to strengthen it.
It's-
it's
I
gonna
think-
Possibly. I'll tell you in November.
Yeah, actually, a lot of women are running.
Well, yeah, but it's also, are some of the senators who are up for re-election in a place where the number of women who come out, angry women, will make a difference?
Yes.
Well, according to Ted Cruz, he needs to win to prevent
Impeachment.
United States from coming under UN rule.
And
That's what he said.
That's a strong argument
one of his
for
arguments. I
some
heard.
people who believe that, and they also believe that everybody should be allowed to have, or they should be allowed to have whatever weapons
Yes.
they need to protect themselves against the U.S. Army.
Yes.
Yeah, they protect themselves against the U.S. Army. Isn't that revolution? Isn't that treason?
Well, no, not necessarily.
Depends on how you read Second
Yeah.
Amendment.
How do you read it?
Well, but actually, what was the judge who died? Supreme Court judge who died?
Alito.
No,
Leah. No.
S.
No, the
Scalia?
guy who died.
Scalia.
Scalia. Yeah.
Said that people are not reading the Second Amendment right. He said that it says regulated.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, it also says militia.
Yes, regulated militia.
Minor detail, as opposed
I thought
to
that was
some guy.
interesting coming from him.
Yeah.
Well,
But-
right. He was a constitutional
Yeah.
scholar.
But at the same time, people don't care about that. People say, "I want a gun."
Right.
Yes.
I want
Well,
a gun, and having a gun is
yeah.
more important than being able to talk on TV like this.
But what is also interesting when President let me finish
Yeah,
this up.
you- go ahead.
While candidate Trump was touting his candidacy, he was saying that even if he shoots somebody on Fifth Avenue, people are still going to vote for him, and he was right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Right to bear arms. Okay.
And
It doesn't put a limit on the right to bear arms, so therefore you can have a pistol,
Tank.
a tank,
Are
a
you-
fighter jet,
Okay.
Atomic bomb,
atomic bomb.
So is
biological weapons.
But I don't know. Does biological well, no, actually, biological
That's-
weapons also you can have it in a bunker.
Can you kill somebody with
Yes.
it? Yeah,
Yes.
you know, a baseball bat. you know.
Baseball bat. But that's interesting. Actually, you could include any weapon you like.
Except right now that the U.S. government does prohibit some of those
Oh, I
weapons.
see.
Right.
So either it's, they have the right to prohibit what they want to, or
Nobody has complained yet.
yeah.
Well, about the plastic gun, the guy complained, and then now it is allowed.
Well, I didn't think it was decided yet. There was a court case,
Yeah.
and I don't
Well,
know that it was decided.
there was a court case, and then the government refused to
Prosecute.
refused to prosecute, but there's something else that they can't do quite yet.
Yeah, I forgot actually what was because the guy was supposed to have posted the details on the
How
web.
to do it, yeah.
But I don't know whether Trump stopped it or Trump allowed it. I forgot that. The case.
So
Someone
there
is suing, but I don't mean
They were
who.
originally going to allow it, but somebody said it could give bad people a meaning, not necessarily bad Americans, but bad people around the world, untraceable guns. So that would be bad.
But more importantly, they could bring guns in anywhere, including into a presidential press conference, which I'm sure Trump would not be happy with.
Right.
But
And he's really not all that happy with recording devices either.
well, supposedly the reason why his lawyer was recording everybody was that Trump recorded everybody.
Yes.
So
So
Omarosa has recorded.
Right.
bunch of stuff, but
Well, I mean, it's
so
evidently
therefore-
part of the culture.
Trump has the conversation between him and Comey.
oh, is that right?
It may well be.
Probably.
I don't know.
No, he
claimed-
records everybody.
Well,
That's what he said. That's what everybody that that was with him ever said.
Wow.
So who will challenge him to bring things forward?
I don't know.
Do those conversations become federal property, or does
they
that?
would be federal property.
Yeah.
The official, not Official Records Act, the same one. There's
Secrets Act, or-
maintenance of records,
Yeah.
maintenance
Well-
of personal records or something like that.
He's not aware of that, so it doesn't exist.
Well, it
Oh.
turns out that when he's done with a piece of paper, he rips it up, and the presidential staff takes and puts it back together again because it's illegal to throw away
Oh, is that right?
these
Wow.
records. So, and he's obviously aware that and he does it anyway. He probably enjoys watching somebody on their hands and knees taping things.
Well, we, the Americans, have the ability to have him continue or not continue.
Yep.
I think he is going to continue
And why is that?
because there is a base which likes him, and hopefully more people will like him and continue liking him. You just need 51.
No.
Well, you need
No.
you need electoral college. that's
Right.
all.
Electoral college.
You need electoral college. So he won based on that.
He
And
won
it-
according to the rules.
Yes.
Yeah,
as far
and
as
if
we
you
can tell.
get the electoral college and you're able to monkey around with the voting registrations and the and change the results of people that actually did vote. They keep saying that no votes were ever changed. How do they know that?
Well, they're reasonably sure of where they got into. They got into registration records, etc. I don't. So they could keep say Paul, you're going to vote the wrong way. You're not registered.
Yeah.
So when you go there,
Well, they've done that with hundreds of thousands of people.
but that's different. That's U.S. people committing crimes as opposed to
Yes.
foreigners. By the way, did you hear the latest that Trump? This was like 2 days ago. Trump said there's an attack on the American electoral system, and we're going to do something about it. China is trying to influence the 2018 election.
Yes,
Is that right? Well,
Yes.
by
Yeah.
doing what?
Fooling around with the on the internet, etc.
Oh.
Going after
On our scanned votes.
I
Remember
don't
how we scanned those votes in high school?
but that's relatively safe.
That is safe, I
But
thought.
not only
yeah.
will China, if Russia has done it,
Russia didn't
China?
do it. They said they didn't do it.
So it
Well-
must have been China.
Yeah, there had to be somebody.
I mean,
well, China and others.
And then some fat kid in his bedroom just can't do that much.
well, actually, Trump did say
No, no,
that
no.
kid in his bedroom.
Except it's a 400-pound guy on his bed.
Yeah.
But I just found it interesting that he's admitted that there's an attack. He hasn't said he was going to do about it, if anything, but it's China.
But the thing is, if
Some other guy, some other dude did it.
but if you mess with China more and more with more tariffs, I would imagine that they would find ways to do something.
I would think so.
and other countries
And
too.
other countries, but it's a question of whose interest is to really meddle in U.S. elections, either Russia or China.
Well, I think China has interest as well, but Russia, to me, is just interested in chaos, as Paul pointed out. Most of the really bad things that have come out in public came directly from Russia.
From Russia.
And if Russia really wanted to protect Trump, that wouldn't happen. So I think they just want to have a completely paralyzed U.S. as well as Europe. There was an interesting thing this morning. Was at a class, and we were talking about nationalism. And the nationalism in Europe is fueled as much as anything else by immigration. And where are the immigrants coming from, particularly recently when things started to get really bad? Syria.
Syria.
And who's working with Assad in Syria? Russia. And there was something that came out a couple of weeks ago. There's one province up by Turkey, that's still in the hands of anti-Assad people. And it came out that Assad is considering using chemical weapons against that province. Nothing's happened yet. But isn't it strange that if you're trying to limit the refugees, that you announce well in advance, hey, we're going to really do a job on you, so that everybody runs
Will run.
further. If they run further, they're going to run to Europe. And what's going to happen? The anti-immigration people in Europe are going to get elected, and there's going to be the same kind of conflict we're having here today.
Are you then saying that Russia is fueling the refugee movement, and are they also funding the alt-right in in Europe?
I don't know if they're doing that or even if they have to.
It's just happening
Well,
because of the pushing the refugees in.
we know that in France, they were doing the same kind of social media activities that they did in the United States in 2016
Okay, so they might be doing that
to
in
help
Brazil.
the alt-right. So whether they're providing money the way they did through the NRA to the Trump campaign isn't clear. But it's that same kind of thing. And getting back to Mueller, I think when he finishes, whenever that's going to be, assuming that his memo ever is allowed to see the light of day, which may be a big assumption, we're going to find out that that's what happened.
But wouldn't it be easier for Trump to just get rid of Rosenstein, and that means Mueller is out too?
Well, they only have to get rid of Mueller. All they have to do is say the memo has to go to whoever is in that position, and that guy redacts everything that they don't want to have seen, and suddenly you find out that, oh, there wasn't a 2016 election.
Oh, I see. Even though they find it, that would be just redacted, and
Yeah.
that's the end of that.
Because the memo goes to them and then
I
is
see, okay.
released or not released. And they could release it to Nunes, for example, who could say, yeah, it was all a waste of time, nothing happened, and everything is classified so it doesn't get out.
So that means, in that sense, it is in the interest of Trump to keep Rosenstein in place.
As long as he can control him.
Yes.
If he can't control him, then get rid of him. And what's more, I think that the thing that just came out that he said, I'm going to wear a wire, or he said, should I wear a wire, etc., that the release of that was an attempt by someone, I don't know who, to get rid of Rosenstein.
I mean, that's what I also was thinking, that it was that also a move, kind of to create an atmosphere so that they could get rid of Rosenstein and eventually get rid of Mueller.
It may well be, although I don't think it was by Trump. I think it was by another party, whether it was the non-existent conservatives in the FBI, or the Russians, or Nunes, or some guy out in Idaho who's worried that if you get rid of Trump, then he won't be able to have his bazooka.
Yeah.
Or Conway.
I don't know. I don't think Conway's necessarily an independent actor, but maybe she is.
Now, one of the things that may help get rid of Trump is the fact that right now our economy is really high and excellent. But if the economy start going down, then Trump will be seen differently, and there may be ways to limit his being the president.
The problem with that is it's not likely to happen until after the November elections. So as long as he has control of at least one body of Congress, nothing really bad can happen to him. And then he can pull something else or blame somebody else. I think that what China's doing is they're playing a long game, and they're saying, okay, you're doing this to us. We're going to do something to your base.
Yeah, the economy.
And unfortunately, I don't think the base cares as much about jobs, because the average wage, the guy, the guy on the street, guy or gal on the street, isn't making much more money than they were before. There may be points where that begins to change, but right now it isn't. And I can tell you, because I shop a lot, food prices are soaring. Gas prices, we all know, are going up rapidly. I don't know about rents, etc., but if I got a job and I still can't afford to live, then hopefully I begin to say, well, maybe this isn't helping me all that much. But it's the culture wars. It's the belief that nobody gives a damn about me, so tear the place down. And they're ignoring the fact that when you tear down a house, and you put up a new one, which may be better, it still costs a hell of a lot of money.
But that is the actual issue, that because there's an emotional hold on the base of the people, on the base group, it's Trump is winning.
Yeah.
And because right now what we are looking at is that this is a kind of small sacrifice to save our country, because otherwise the country is going to dogs. So if we have to sacrifice a little bit, why not? Everybody, it's a national sentiment.
And we're going to hurt that elite guy,
That's a different.
who looks down at me
Yes.
anyway, so screw him.
Yeah.
When the prices go up, does the elite guy make more money?
Yes.
Probably.
That's
Yeah.
what.
So that's what's going to hurt him,
Yeah.
to make more money.
Well, Walmart actually announced recently that the prices are going to go up, but
Well, they're going to go
elite
up.
don't shop at Walmart.
Right.
No, but I mean, the people that supply them goods.
Right.
And